This episode of Last Lap is the Alfa Romeo Championship, brought to you in association with Alfashop.
Welcome to Last Lap, and here at Cadwell Park, featuring this, the mountain, which when you're on it you realise just how steep it is. Now we're going to see action from the Alfashop Alfa Romeo Championships, and Cadwell Park, with the changeable weather conditions, always throws up some strange results. So let's see what happens.
Andy, you've just come back from qualifying. Tell us, how did it go?
Well, I was being fairly cautious, having had a big accident here last year, so I was just trying to get round in one piece and gradually increase my speed as the laps went on. So I think it's gone okay. I don't know how I've done, but...
You had a bit of a shunt in it last year, did you not?
Yes, around at the gooseneck on the far side, yeah. I just got one wheel on the grass, it was wet, and I hit the barrier head on at about 70 miles an hour. And the car was a mess, and I was a bit of a mess. So, yeah, we had to strip it all down, straighten it, straighten the chassis, and then we decided to do some work on it. We put a later body work on. We put touring car arches on, bigger wheels, wider wheels to get more grip, make it a bit less hostile than it was last year. It was a bit of a handful then. So, hopefully, it'll go better this year.
James, you've just come back from qualifying. Tell us, how did it go?
Pretty good, really, to be fair. A lot of oil down, but set a really quick pace, so I'm really pleased with it. It was difficult conditions, so to come out on top and to set a good time, I'm very happy with it, yeah.
Cadwell Park tends to be one of those circuits that drivers either love or hate. I mean, they complain about not being able to overtake and being unsighted all the time, but what's your opinion?
It's definitely one I love. It's one of the best driver circuits. It's got a really great flow to it. Granted, it is very difficult to overtake, but it makes it a challenge, and that's what racing's all about, really.
Now, we're well into the season now, and there's quite a battle between you and James, your teammate. I believe you're actually leading in the points.
By 1 point, so it's very tight. He won the first round of the season. He's been doing really consistent with the points, so it's very close, and I bet it'll be like that till the end of the season, to be fair.
Right, James, we've been talking to the other James, and there's quite a battle developing between you two, isn't there?
Well, I don't know about a battle today because he's so fast, but the championship's very close. He's only 1 point ahead, well 2 points now with a point in qualifying, so it's going to go all the way to the end of the season, I suspect, but it's good to have such a close competitor.
Do you think you're going to give him any trouble today?
If I can get him on the start, he'll have trouble. Let's put it that way, but we've got to get past him first.
Cadwell Park is notoriously difficult for overtaking, I understand.
It's the track is so narrow here. It's really a bike circuit, I think, and we sort of just use it occasionally for the club stuff. But very tight, very twisty, very difficult to overtake. So it has very close racing, but not necessarily a lot of overtaking.
So there's John Billingsley in car number 8, making his way down the hill on the installation lap, ready for round 6 of the BRSCC Alfashop Alfa Romeo Championship 2014. Pole position today going to our lone Class A2 racer, Bryan SHRUBB. Alongside him, unfortunately, a gap where A1 pole sitter Guy Hale should have been. Third on the grid, first invitation driver Alistair Kellett in the Punto. Fourth on the grid, Andy Robinson in Class A1. Then it's Robin Eyre Maunsell, the lone Class B man. Roger McMahon next. The Class E pole, 7th on the grid, James Ford. Next to him, James Bishop. Then Steve Potts and Tom Herbert. John Billingsley and Tom Eastwood, row 6. Row 7, Andy Hancock and Andy Inman. Then Christian Leith, Steve O'Brien and Richard Ford completing the grid. So a good field of cars, and lights on here at Cadwell Park. Bryan SHRUBB gets away well. Alistair Kellett in second, looks to the outside line. Well, Bryan SHRUBB was 2.8 seconds a lap quicker in qualifying. I don't think anyone's doubting his ability to win the race there. 3 wide in Class E going up into Coppice, the first corner. So a major sort out. And leading Class E is James Bishop, who got the best start there in 95. You're looking at the invitation class car of Roger McMahon in yellow, and Roger heading the leader now in Class E, James Bishop, who's done what he needed to do, gets away from James Ford in second place. Ford, the championship leader, coming under pressure from Steve Potts, who looks up the inside in the number 21 147. Potts has got the line there, but Ford gets a faster sweep out of Chris Curve, and he'll have to content himself at the moment with third in class. Down the hill, Roger McMahon up ahead of James Bishop. You can see James Ford, getting me Ford's muddled up already, Richard's first outing, and James Ford starting to put the pressure on in the red 156. Then it's Steve Potts that goes through, followed by the dark blue Class A1 car of Andy Robinson, and we're looking at the back end of Andy's car. Here comes Andy into shot now, being put under a bit of pressure from John Billingsley in car number 8, the man from Walderslade down near Chatham in Kent in the Alfa Romeo 147. And he's piling the pressure on at the moment, and himself coming under a little bit of attention from Tom Herbert, the Copthorne-based driver in car 17, who we go in car with now down the main straight past the pit lane. A very picturesque circuit, Cadwell Park. Andy Robinson making a little bit of progress along the straight, so he'll be looking to move up the order. The only Class A1 runner, 2 guys qualified, Guy Hale and Andy Robinson. Guy Hale taking the pole, but as we said, not in this one, as we look at Tom Eastwood in the 145. And although this is effectively a one manufacturer championship, we have got all the different shapes represented, so I think pretty unique in UK motorsport. As looking up the inside there was James Ford, having a very good look at James Bishop. Tom Herbert chasing John Billingsley, and then down behind them it's Tom Eastwood. So as ever, Class E fiercely fought. You heard in the interview, just 2 points now separating James Ford and James Bishop for the championship lead. 1 point coming into the event. Steve Potts is third in the table, the man who moved across from the BRSCC Porsche Championship. So Tom Eastwood piling the pressure on as the cars head up towards the mountain once again. Cadwell Park just over 2 miles in length. Robin Eyre Maunsell goes through shot. Here's the battle for the lead of Class E going through. James Bishop still from James Ford. Billingsley and Herbert still dicing hard. And there's a gap back to the second of the 2 invitation class cars, the Fiat Punto Abarth of Roger McMahon. Tom Eastwood with a little bit of a gap over Andy Inman in the number 80 156, and we tick off another lap. 20-minute races for the BRSCC Alfashop Alfa Romeo Championship, and points of course scored in respective classes. Here's Andy Hancock trying to close up on Andy Inman. Back with the invitation racer. Alistair Kellett's leading the invitation class at the moment. That's the car second in the invitations. Now, since you last saw the Alphas on last lap, we've had 3 races, 2 at Donington, 1 at Alton Park. Ian Stapleton took a brace of wins in Class A1 at Donington. Graham Seeger winning at Alton Park. In Class A2, it was a double for Nick Anderson at Donington Park. Class B, Darrell Wilson winning both races at Donington. Clive Hodgkin winning at Alton Park. Roger Evans won all 3 races in Class C. We don't have any Class C runners this weekend. In Class E, Donington Park race wins shared by James Ford and Tom Herbert, with James Ford winning at Alton Park. So that updates you on what's happened since our first glimpse of the championship back at Silverstone on the 6th of April. So Roger McMahon racing hard, but look at this very close battle we've got for Class E. The dark blue car ahead is Andy Robinson, the A1 class car ahead of the Class E's. Tom Herbert piling the pressure on John Billingsley at the moment. Billingsley missed the Donington Park round. You might recall seeing him at Silverstone, had a non-finish in race number 1. And there's Richard Ford. So good to see Richard out there racing in the 146. James Ford's brother. And here is James Ford piling the pressure on the class leader, James Bishop. So James looking for a second win of 2014. James Ford having taken 3 wins thus far, one in race 2 at Silverstone, one at Donington Park, one at Alton Park. You can see extremely close between those two. Steve Potts goes through in 3rd place in class at the moment. Roger McMahon in the Punto of Bath up ahead of Tom Herbert. We go back to the Class E. This is a real good scrap for the lead. One mistake here could cost James Bishop dear. So he comes down through Mansfield and then past the bus stop, which is used by the bike racers. So you can see part of it coned off. And then up into the hairpin and up the mountain. Cracking battle between these two. And it's James Bishop, 2nd place in the championship, that leads this scrap at the moment. And Tom Herbert, I beg your pardon, James Ford thinks about having a look up the inside. Will he be able to get through? Join us after the break to find out. Welcome back to Cadwell Park, round 6 of the BRSCC Alfashop Alfa Romeo Championship. And a big battle on here between John Billingsley in the green Alfa Romeo 147 and Tom Herbert in the 156, who's chasing hard. Up ahead of them, Roger McMahon in the Fiat Punto of Bath. Here's Luther Blissett, the ex-professional footballer, so name you may well know, albeit not from motor racing. And Luther and the team have done a grand job to get that car out today. He's running 12th place at the moment in Class E, which is the biggest class within the championship. So Roger McMahon now past Stephen Potts, who is running 3rd in Class E. This is the view from John Billingsley. Directly in front of us is Stephen Potts, and directly behind John Billingsley, having a good go, is Tom Herbert. Herbert in the 156. As you heard the drivers say in the build-up to the racing, extremely difficult to pass, not impossible to pass. You have to be a little bit reliant on sometimes the driver in front making a little bit of a mistake or teeing someone up 2 or 3 corners early. You've got a couple of long runs on the circuit where it is possible to get the car up on the inside line. But when the cars are very evenly matched, as many of these cars are in this championship, it can be tricky. Now look at this, John Billingsley having a look down the inside of Stephen Potts as they go into the old hairpin, down into Barn. Oh, that wound up with a great manoeuvre there by Tom Herbert, who goes through into 4th place in class, and John Billingsley was looking for a position himself, and he got, I won't say hung out to dry because it was only 1 place. He was looking to gain 1 but ends up losing 1, but a very opportune drive there by Tom Herbert, who goes up to 4th in class. Brilliant stuff. So Robin Eyre Maunsell all over the back of Alistair Kellett, our visitor from Ireland, who is currently in 2nd place. Robin Eyre Maunsell in 3rd. Bryan SHRUBB, meanwhile, is working his way through the traffic and passes, or about to pass, Luther Blissett. Luther goes to the outside of the track on the way up the mountain. That's probably going to be the only time I think we see Luther get lapped in this one based on those lap times. Remember, the 147 class, much more standard, but Bryan SHRUBB, fastest lap of the race so far, lap 4, 1 minute 42.081. Alistair Kellett is next up with 145.179 in the invitation class. Here's Alistair, still being chased by Robin Eyre Maunsell, the ex-Works rally driver. and one of the older drivers, if not the oldest driver in the championship, and still a very hard racer and an accomplished racer. But back to Bryan SHRUBB in the Alfa 33 Class A2, and it's wonderful to see this car back in the championship. Now, what's happened to James Ford? Because we're looking at the front runners in Class E, and it's James Bishop from Steve Potts, with Tom Herbert now third in class. So James Ford, the championship leader, is going to lose that championship lead here if he's out of the race. There's John Billingsley in fourth position. Andy Inman still fending off Andy Hancock at the moment. Back to Bryan SHRUBB, who is building a pretty healthy lead. It's out to over 20 seconds now ahead of Alistair Kellett, which again, as I said, we would have expected. There you just saw James Ford off the circuit, the red 156 off the circuit. So family honours are now going to be with his brother Richard, having his motor racing debut this weekend in the Bianco built 146. And here is Richard about to be lapped by Bryan SHRUBB. It's really good to see another Ford on the grid, another car in the championship. He pulls over and allows Bryan SHRUBB through. Well, Bryan very much untroubled at the moment, and comes out of Barn, down the hill once again here at Cadwell Park. Alistair Kellett second position ahead of Robin Airmortal in car number 60, lone Class B runner. Just to put things in perspective, we've got two invitation class cars, one A2, one A1 and one B. So really class battles, very much all about Class E in this championship at the moment. The other guys will pick up points for competing and finishing if they do so. Kellett goes across the line, Robin Airmortal still chasing as well, up into Coppice, the left-hander, and then round the right-hander into Charlie's. But we're back with Roger McMahon. Now we've got a change round in Class E, because up into second place has gone Tom Herbert. Steve Potts is now third, and he's got John Billingsley right behind him as well, with Tom Eastwood fifth in class. Lights ablaze on these cars, so John Billingsley fourth place. This is going to be his best class position of the year. Took sixth place in race 2 at Silverstone in April. Missed the Donington Park round, was sixth in class at Alton Park. So he's climbing up the order. That's exactly what he needs to do. Here meanwhile is Bryan SHRUBB, still working his way through the traffic down into Barn Corner and reeling off another fast lap here in Class A2. So across the line we've got Christian Leith and Steve O'Brien ahead of us. So on to the last couple of laps. Here is Alistair Kellett second, Robin Airmortal in third place. Now they'll hairpin down into Barn. They'll pick up the last lap signal as well. Climb up the hill towards Coppice, uphill gradient, then right the way through to Charlie's. Christian Leith, I think, about to be passed by Steve O'Brien. Those two having a good battle for 8th and 9th in class. Back to Alistair Kellett in second. Third position still Robin Airmortal. Here come the Class E's, who have had a titanic scrap over this race, and it's James Bishop who leads it at the moment from Tom Herbert. Steve Potts is third from John Billingsley. Potts still in third. As we go back to Andy Inman, who is led by Andy Hancock, sixth position in Class E. Now I'm wondering whether Bryan SHRUBB is going to be able to lap these two cars. He certainly seems to be closing up. You can see behind them Christian Leith ahead in blue of Steve O'Brien, but Bryan SHRUBB into the old hairpin for the last time, down towards Barn Corner. I don't think he's going to lap any more cars, so he's lapped 3. He's lapped Luther Blissett, Steve O'Brien and Christian Leith. Comes down the hill, and on his return to the championship it's pole position and a win for Bryan SHRUBB, to the applause of everyone on the pit lane. Here comes Christian Leith. He's going to take 8th in class, just ahead of Steve O'Brien. So SHRUBB wins, Alistair Kellett 2nd, Andy Robinson in 3rd, Robin Eyre-Maunsell in 4th, and then Roger McMahon. Class E goes to James Bishop from Tom Herbert, Steve Potts, John Billingsley, and Tom Eastwood in 10th place, 5th in class. Andy Hancock next from Andy Inman, Christian Leith 13th, Steve O'Brien next, and then Luther Blissett. Fastest laps to SHRUBB, Kellett, Eyre-Maunsell, Robinson and Tom Herbert in Class E.
Well, Brian, a great result for you. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it's good. Very good start. Initially had the punto of Alistair behind me, but I got clear of him, and then really just pulled away, had a nice comfortable gap, and just maintained it really.
Fantastic stuff. Well, bodes well for tomorrow and the race there. What are your thoughts for tomorrow?
Hopefully a Father's Day present from my dad, who's looked after the car ever since I started in 1993, to be honest. So a win tomorrow will be really good.
Alistair, that was one heck of a fight with Robin.
Yeah, it was good. Got a good start. Nearly got Brian at the start, but Brian then just disappeared. I knew Robin was going to catch me, so he did catch me after 3 or 4 laps, and I just had to make sure I had enough of a gap before we got up the park straight to the end of it, because he would drive past me just with more power. But it was a brilliant race, and then Robin tried to go around the outside of me in the gooseneck, and it didn't pay off, and ended up finishing second. So brilliant.
So you're obviously different power cars, different weights of cars as well. Do you find that's quite an unusual situation to be in?
Yeah, it's different racing. It's a lot different to one make racing, because in one make you have all the same power and all that, but with the Alfa Championship we're allowed to run our Fiats in the invitation class. We have a lot less power, but our cars would probably handle a little bit better and be lighter. So it just makes for overall racing very good.
Well, Andy, 3rd on the grid, down to 9th, and then clawing your way back up to 3rd. That's not the usual way.
No, I got the mother and father of all bad starts. Wheel spin in 1st, 2nd and 3rd, and I got swallowed up by the first corner. So I had to just try to pick my way through the standard cars and then try and set off after the people at the front. So
what was the reason behind the wheel spin, though?
Too many revs. This car's got so much power. I was just anxious to get off the line really quickly and just applied too much power.
Okay, so it wasn't the conditions or a tyre choice or anything like that?
No, it was just too much right foot.
Well, Robin, that was a pretty good race.
Well, it was fairly boring, because as soon as Andy Robinson disposed of me, which he did fairly swiftly, I was very quickly on my own, though concerned because the E-cars were not far behind. So either I have lost some steam overnight, or else the car has. I prefer to think it's the car. The car's very good. It's very quick round corners, and it's quick out of corners. With somebody else it would be quicker into corners, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks, I'm afraid.
And we're talking about different classes, Class E being one of the most competitive classes there are, so it must be pleasing for you to finish ahead of all the rest of the field.
Yeah, it's fantastic. There's some really, really good drivers here. Team Bianco that run my car, we've got 8 cars here this weekend, and all the drivers are capable of winning races, so it's really good to finish first, so hopefully we can do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, let's talk about tomorrow very quickly. What sort of weather are you hoping for?
Well, dry, hopefully. Cadwell in the wet is an absolute nightmare for us, so dry and sunny, hopefully.
Very impressive array of cars here. Tell us a little bit about how difficult it is to run such a massive team of cars.
Logistically is the difficult bit. When you're actually at the circuit, it's as long as you're organised, it's okay. It's getting all of this equipment, all the cars here, getting everyone here at the same time. Yeah, that's the difficult bit. But we've been doing it a long time, and we're about good at it now.
You've been a pretty successful racer yourself, haven't you?
Yeah, years ago now. My first race was here at Cadwell Park in 1986. Raced for 10, 15 years, and now pretty much retired from racing myself, run the team.
An interesting battle developing within the team. We've got James and James. There's 1 point between them in the championship, and they're going at each other. How do you kind of keep a handle on that?
No team orders. We prepare the cars, we make sure the cars are here and race ready. It's down to the drivers to sort it out. on the tarmac, so we have no team orders. We just advise not to take anybody off. That's about as strict as we get with them.
I've been told that you're probably the most experienced driver in the actual Alfa Championship.
Yeah, probably in terms of sheer length. In terms of racing, not at all. But in terms of motorsport, I suppose yes. But I've learnt nothing. I started knowing nothing, and I think I've now forgotten what little I ever gathered along the way.
Was it rallying that you were mainly involved in?
Yes, I was involved in rallying in my youth. Really connect with Roots and then with Chrysler. And starting with Imps back in the 60s, and then continued with them driving for the factory into the early 70s, swapped to Avengers, and then was doing British Championship events for them, the Group 1, and won that championship 2 years, 1975 and 1976 with Avenger. And after that they gave me my cards. They said I was too old and I should go away and play. Well, they were very nice about it. They gave me a car and said, go away and play, but you're on your own budget now. And then I stopped for 20 years while the family grew up and I tried to earn a living and so forth. And then when I got the old age pension, having done a little bit of classic road rally just for fun in the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, when I got the old age pension in 2005, I said, what can I usefully or uselessly spend this on? And I thought, I'll go motor race. It's much less complicated than rallying. It takes much less time. After all, you turn up and a nice man waves a flag at you and you drive around like a lunatic for 20 minutes and then you come in and have tea and stickies and go home. It's perfect.
Well, before we have tea and sticky buns today, we've got another race to get through. That's Robin Maunsell, one of the real characters of British motor racing and a real pedigree he has. So Bryan SHRUBB starts on pole, Alistair Kellett alongside row 2, Andy Robinson and Robin Maunsell, Roger McMahon and James Bishop next, then Tom Herbert and Steve Potts, John Billingsley and Tom Eastwood, Andy Hancock and Andy Inman row 6, Christian Leith and Steve O'Brien on row 7, Luther Blissett, Richard Ford and James Ford, the two brothers starting at the back of the field with loads of work to do, and expect to charge through the field from James Ford, whose car has been refettled, and you can see it there in red, looking ready to come through the field. So lights out, away we go. Looks like a good start by Roger McMahon, who almost takes to the grass, but it's Alistair Kellett who gets a terrific start. So are we going to see some battling here for the lead? Bryan SHRUBB is busy chasing him at the moment. Tom Eastwood has got some, and off onto the grass goes Tom Herbert and spins around. Is there going to be contact? I think we just got through there. So Tom Herbert, after taking second position in Class E, has a very swift reversal, literally on track and in fortune as well. Bryan SHRUBB challenges for the lead, side by side with Alistair Kellett, the Irishman out front at the moment. And Bryan SHRUBB might have to wait just a little bit longer, coming through Park. Well, the championship very much alive, with James Bishop now, of course, taking the championship lead for Class E ahead of James Ford. Robin Maunsell goes out of shot. Andy Robinson coming down the hill, chased by Roger McMahon, second of the invitation class cars, and then leading Class E once again, it's James Bishop in the 147 from Steve Potts in 21. John Billingsley third in the second green Class E car, climbing up the mountain, and it's still Alistair Kellett out front. So the invitation class car, what a great start, two very good starts indeed out of two races for Alistair Kellett. Now let's see what Bryan SHRUBB can do down the straight, because this, and probably the run down Park Straight, where we might expect him to open up and make the pass, comes out of the slipstream, side by side across the line, uses the power of the 33 to take the overall lead. Well, as I say, we would have expected that, but thrilling to see Alistair Kellett making a great start and going through. It's Robin Maunsell in third place, followed by Andy Robinson fourth. Alistair Kellett still, of course, has to try and beat Roger McMahon here to take invitation class honours. The Fiat Punto Abarth, the two invitation class cars here. Actually, the only two seen so far this year. They were with us at Donington Park as well. Alistair Kellett taking 4th position, so 2nd, best result of the season for him overall, and his 3rd invitation class win of the season too. So this round 7, and will mark at the end of the race the halfway point of this year's campaign. We've got a single race at Snetterton on the 12th of July, and then it's a double header at Anglesey. Another wonderful track, Anglesey, rounds 9 and 10 on the 10th of August. And then Rockingham in September, 21st of September, and Silverstone for the finale on the 19th of October. So Bryan SHRUBB actually going quicker in this race, so conditions quicker than round 6, which was held yesterday. Up the hill we go. Andy Robinson now ahead of Robin Air Maunsell and into 3rd place. So we've got the Class A1 car ahead of the Class B machine. Then it's Roger McMahon, followed by the leader of Class E, James Bishop. In Class E, who's got Steve Potts for company at the moment. And then John Billingsley 3rd in class, and a little bit of a gap back to Andy Hancock, who's 4th in class. The white and blue car, which, if memory serves, we had Lady Races Stacey Dennis in last time. It was good to welcome back Mel Freeman, incidentally, at Donington Park in the 156. But here's the class leader for Class E, James Bishop, looking to try and make it a double this weekend. Now, thus far, we haven't had a double in Class E, and James pretty well placed to do that, so he'll be pretty happy with his weekend if it means that he's taken the class win and also 2 class wins and the championship lead. Steve Potts 2nd in class. John Billingsley is following. Stephen Potts, another Kent-based driver like John Billingsley. Stephen from West Malling in Kent, which is where the offices of the British Racing and Sports Car Club, who look after this championship and indeed many other of the best championships in the UK, are based. Back to Robin Air Maunsell in the 60 car, who is having a bit of a lonely time of this one as well. So Robin 4th place at present, and then the Class E's forming up behind. Lights on from John Billingsley. Won't phase Stephen Potts at all as they climb up the mountain. You can see Potts actually closer to the class leader at the moment. Stephen chasing his first class win of the year. His best result so far, 2nd at Alton Park, 2nd in race 1 of the year at Silverstone as well. So that first class win just proving a little bit elusive at the moment. Once he gets them, I'm sure that the many more of them will follow. But again, to me, that just underlines how very competitive Class E is. And looking at the statistics, we've had 3 different winners over the 6 races that we've had so far. Tom Herbert's won a race, James Ford has won 3, James Bishop 2 so far. So through goes Andy Hancock, followed by Christian Leith. Steve Potts really piling the pressure on at the moment. Not only is he battling hard with James Bishop, but I think he's starting to put a bit of ground between himself and John Billingsley. Let's look back there. Billingsley now around about 6 or 7 car lengths behind, and this is great news for Potts because it means he doesn't have to drive on his mirrors. He can put in the attacking drive and try and dislodge the Class E race leader James Bishop in front of him. Bishop, who is based in Aylesbury, and based on the fact that we've got James Ford away down the order, not quite sure how damaged James' car was in race number 1, but they've got it fixed for race 2, and he's having to work his way through from the back. Now remember that because Class E is less modified, I guess that means that you're not going to have as much of an advantage to make those passes and come up through the field. So it'll be interesting to see how far he can get. He's passed a couple of cars already, but losing touch with the race leaders. Robin Air Maunsell goes through in 4th into Hall Benz, and James Bishop continues to lead class here from Stephen Potts. John Billingsley still not that far behind, but not in a position to challenge. They go down the hill again. There's Tom Eastwood. Now behind Tom Eastwood is James Ford. We go in car with Tom, looking ahead at Andy Inman, and James Ford has worked his way past a couple of cars. You can see Steve O'Brien behind him now, who he's passed. Christian Leith goes through. There's Andy Inman. And then James Ford, followed by Steve O'Brien, Roger McMahon, and the recovering Tom Herbert, who's trying to make his way through the field as well. James Ford, though, championship leader coming into this round, putting the pressure on Tom Eastwood. Is he going to be able to make up another place? Well, join us after the break to see how he fares. Race leader Bryan SHRUBB comes down into barn, building his lead up. He's got a bigger lead, believe it or not, than he had in race number 1. He took race 1 victory by 33 seconds from Alistair Kellett. And he's already at 33 seconds as we enter the second half of the race. Tom Eastwood in the 145. Working hard. Andy Inman up front. Now this is the battle that we saw before we went to break, and it's James Ford trying to pile the pressure on, and this will give you an indication of just how difficult it is. We've got the championship leader in red trying to pass Tom Eastwood. There is Steve O'Brien in 42, man from Crawley in West Sussex, who's just been passed now by Roger McMahon. And Roger, invitation class car, should expect him to get involved in this mix as well. Christian Leith in 22, the man from Scalloway, very long distance traveller. And Inman passed there by Tom Eastwood. In car with Tom Herbert, looks up the inside of Steve O'Brien, very neatly executed manoeuvre there. Now remember that Tom Herbert had that gyration on the opening lap of the race. We look at Tom Herbert going through. Sorry, Tom Eastwood going through. Andy Hancock in white and blue up ahead of Christian Leith. Andy running 4th in class at the present time. And here comes James Ford looking at the inside line, side by side with Roger McMahon in 29, who looks around the outside. Andy Inman in front of us. In the purple 156, Tom Eastwood has got some clear track in front of him now. So Tom with 3 or 4 cars dicing hard behind. But at the moment he's got a bit of breathing space as Ford goes through. Tom Herbert's there as well, trying to claw his way back up the order. So there is Leith. Eastwood followed by Inman. And coming up the inside now is Tom Herbert. Looks at the championship leader coming into this round. James Ford really coming under pressure there from Tom Herbert. Look how close these racers get. There are higher cars available in this championship, so if you're racing something else or not racing anything at all, and you fancy having a play in this championship, then get in touch with the championship. You can check it out via the BRSCC website or the Alfa Racer website. If you Google Alfashop Alfa Romeo Championship, you'll find us very easily. But there are cars that can be hired, and if you fancy coming in and experiencing the camaraderie in the paddock, you'd be very welcome to do so. Down into Coppice again. Well, James Ford's been made to work very hard. Through goes Robin Eyre Maunsell. Here is James Bishop, still leading class. He's developed a bit of a lead now over Steve Potts, who's second. Potts was challenging a few laps ago, but it's dropped away just a little bit, but he in turn has pulled away clear from John Billingsley, who's 3rd in class at the moment. So Billingsley with 3rd in class, this could be his first class podium of the season, so he's looking real good about that. Meanwhile, back with Bryan SHRUBB, the leader, who's going to pass Luther Blissett, the first car to be lapped in this race, as Luther was indeed in race number 1, and great that the 156 is still running. As I said in race 1, a lot of effort to get that car fettled for this weekend. Alistair Kellett is 2nd. Andy Robinson behind him is 3rd in the Class A1 156. So here comes Andy Robinson. Chasing hard, so he will pick up the Class A1 points, assuming that he gets the car to the finish. Now, is that me, or was it sounding not that healthy as it went past that time? So let's hope that we've not put the curse of the commentator on him. Roger McMahon making progress and now looking to try and pass Christian Leith as he makes progress. On board, Christian Leith goes wide. Maybe had a quick look in his mirrors. McMahon goes through, and chasing McMahon now is Tom Eastwood. Sorry, chasing Leith now is Tom Eastwood. Now, where are the cars behind him? It's Andy Inman next. So a fair bit. Oh, and there is some smoke, isn't there, out of the back of the 59 car. It doesn't look great at all for Andy Robinson at the moment. Not losing very much time on Alistair Kellett, who is in second position. Bryan SHRUBB still out front. Now, one of the problems here is if that car is depositing any fluids on the circuit, then the race officials will want to get him out of the race as soon as possible. I guess he's going to know if he's got a problem. But as I said, not losing too much ground on Alistair Kellett at the moment. They too are closing in on Luther Blissett, who runs 11th in Class E. Luther keeps to the outside of the track. Kellett goes through. Blue flag's being waved for Luther. We'll see Andy Robinson go through in a minute as well, but still Alistair Kellett in second place. Kellett Motorsport emblazoned on the side. And he comes across the line. Let's just keep a look on the 59 car. He stays out on circuit again. Third place car about to lap the 15th place machine, which he does, going into the left-hander at Coppice, then round into Charlie as we go. Christian Leith from Tom Eastwood. James Ford is next, so Christian Leith 5th in class at the moment. Tom Eastwood is right behind him. James Ford is looking to have a go as well. Look at the rear facing camera. Tom Herbert is in the mix as well in 17. Herbert's probably done the most overtaking of everybody in this meeting, because he was passing people in race number 1, and he staged a very good recovery here in race 2. But back to the race leader, Bryan SHRUBB, who perhaps, as we expected, has pulled away from the field. He's catching up here with Andy Inman and Steve O'Brien, who's very much engaged in battle for 9th place in class. So Bryan SHRUBB, faster lap time in this one. Best lap 141.4. He did a 142.081 yesterday. Andy Hancock goes through. Then Christian Leith 5th in class. Tom Herbert still chasing. Blue flags being waved vigorously by the marshals. Now this pair are having their own battle, so, you know, in all honesty, the last thing they want is a faster car coming through. Luckily, I guess Bryan SHRUBB's not involved in a lead battle. Andy Inman pulls over to the outside line, leaving Bryan SHRUBB the inside. It looks like it's going to be 2 outright victories for SHRUBB on his return to the championship. He's going to head down the hill. Steve O'Brien in front of him. So O'Brien through the past the bus stop and up to the hairpin, and the race leader past both the back markers, who I guess are going to renew battle. At the moment it does look like Steve O'Brien has got slightly the upper hand. He's going to complete 11 laps in the 20 minutes. So Tom Herbert still piling the pressure on. Herbert now in front of James Ford and takes to the grass, has a very, very long look there on the exit of the old hairpin. Here comes Bryan SHRUBB though, so Bryan SHRUBB out of barn corner for the last time. He'll go down the hill. The checkered flag is being readied for him, and it's 2 out of 2 fastest laps as well. Again, very rich applause from the pit wall. Bryan SHRUBB wins it. Across the line goes Steve O'Brien, followed by Andy Inman, 9th and 10th in Class E respectively. So Bryan SHRUBB the winner, Alistair Kellett second, wins the invitation. Robin Eyre Monsell the Class B winner. James Bishop comes next, he wins Class E ahead of Roger McMahon. Steve Potts second in class ahead of John Billingsley and Andy Hancock. Christian Leith in 9th and Tom Herbert in 10th place. Tom Eastwood next, 7th in class ahead of James Ford, then Steve O'Brien, Andy Inman and Luther Blissett in 15th place.
Well, Brian, was it as easy as it looked for you?
It was, in all honesty. I had I had a bad start, but then a good first lap, sort of dicing with Alistair. But to be honest, the cars have got a different level of power, so I was able to get past and then pull away. And then, to be honest, I just played with lines and experimented a bit, so it's quite good fun out there.
Looking at your car itself, what's the best feature of this Alfa?
Probably the fact it was prepared by BLS, who know what they're doing. So the engine's very good, the handling's very good, so it particularly suits a circuit like Cadwell.
Well, Alistair, the weather behaved and so did the car.
Yeah, weather behaved. It would have liked it wet. Might have had more chance of getting ahead of Bryan. Got him ahead at the start, but he's just too much power. So if it had been raining, I might have had a chance, but no chance today. But maybe next day.
Did you say the start? You really flew off the start, didn't you?
Yeah, I got a really good start. Went round the outside and kept him ahead of me. And when we got onto the main straight, he just pulled away. So then it was just a matter of keeping second.
Well, James, we spoke to you yesterday after a class win, and today, same story.
Yep. Fantastic weekend for us, Cadwell Park. It's not our favourite circuit, so to come away with 2 class wins is fantastic.
It's not your favourite circuit, it must be now though.
No, it's too difficult to drive the quite big cars to lump around Cadwell Park. But anywhere that we win, I suppose, goes up the rankings.
But what are your hopes for the next round?
The aim all season is to try and get on the podium, try and stay competitive in every race. It's such a close championship, so to keep scoring good points in every round. So top 3, we'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
James Bishop leads the standings at the halfway stage from Stephen Potts and James Ford in 3rd. Class C led by Roger Evans, Class B led by Darrell Wilson, and Class A2 led by Nick Anderson.
Well, that's it for us here at Cadwell Park for Last Lap. Make sure you join us next time. We'll see you then.
In our next programme, we're delighted to welcome the MG Trophy to Last Lap action from Brands Hatch and around at Silverstone. We'll see you then.